I want to hit you another time. What time is it? Okay, we spent a lot of time talking about that. That's fine. That's perfectly
okay.
fine. Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg. This flotilla. So I had Lath on the show yesterday, and Lath pointed something out that I guess I didn't think about, but he's absolutely right. I had gotten so accustomed to Israel just killing and blowing up pretty much anything. And Lath says, what do you think the best case scenario is for that flotilla? And before he could even say anything, I would be if they killed Greta Thunberg. Meaning if they sink that boat with Greta Thunberg and those other activists on it, that is the best case scenario for their objective in pointing out, look at how insane the Israeli government is. They just murdered these Europeans, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And he's like, well, what do you think the best case is? Or the worst case? The worst case is this. It's effectively what took place. Where,
I don't think so.
Let me show you this picture.
Okay.
I want to show you this picture real quick. This. That.
Right.
Greta Thunberg smiling as an Israeli soldier gives her something to eat. Now, people could say, well, you should be feeding the Palestinians. 1,000% agree with you. 1,000% agree. But coming across as reasonable is always a better perspective as coming across as genocidal maniacs.
Yeah.
And they didn't blow up the boat like they did the first time around, which they did. The first time they effectively just blew up the boat. This time around, they're like, here's bread. Here's something to eat. And she's like, oh, thank you. She should have never taken that picture.
The worst case scenario, who knows what she was actually saying or thinking or what, and who knows.
That's true. I'm just saying that picture.
Bread in there. They probably photoshopped that bread in there. I think the worst case scenario, I guess, for the objective would have been if the Israelis escorted them to the shores of Gaza, let them drop off the aid.
That's true.
And let them turn around and go back. And said, look, we're letting aid in. Thanks for the aid. Thanks for dropping it off. And we gave you a military escort.
That is a good point. That is such a good point.
Yeah, that would have actually, then people would have been like, oh, and all the pro-Israeli people would have been able to say, see, they let her drop off the aid. Now they're with their selfie yacht and, look at what they've done. And the IDF escorted them and ensured that they got there safely and they were able to drop off their aid and go back to Europe. And that would have been, I think, but Israel didn't do that. Instead, I still think what happened was pretty bad, which is Israel decides to intercept no Hamas on board, no weapons on board, just humanitarian aid, decides to intercept it and say, how dare you try to go against our blockade, which is AKA our attempt at starving the Palestinians. How dare you actually try to give them food? And then they try to give these freedom people food, which I'm sure none of them took it. And, gave them food and water and was like, see, look at how nice we are and how great we are. And we're going to give you medical aid and we're going to give you food and water. And it's like, why aren't you doing that for the Palestinians? That's the point. It's
like you're not Palestinians.
Yeah. And so that's why you're willing to do it.
If you are, it bugged the hell out of me. I asked Scott to come on for a UFO topic. And the guy was like, no, because you hate Jews. I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, it just caught me off guard. Because that is not the way my mind works. For me, Zionism is a political movement. Israeli government is a government. I can criticize any government. Sure. Right. And I went back and forth.
I also think you don't have to like a religion if you don't want to like a religion. That's one thing I don't understand is like, why do you have to like, there's a difference between the individual and what the individual believes. Like, you don't have to like conservatives. You don't have to like liberals. Like, you don't have to like Jehovah's Witnesses or Jews or Mormons. Like, why can't you not like?
I get that. I guess my thing is to break it down into an entirety of a religion feels, because to me it's the individual. Like, you can have Christians who are assholes and some of the nice people in the world. And so it's like, I don't know how to skate that line of, I don't like this entirety of.
Right. You would say, I don't like religion, but it's not like I don't like religious people.
Right? Yeah, right. It's a little strange. And I guess it caught me off guard. I don't hate anybody, right? I just, like, for me, is if you're burning kids alive, whether you're a Nazi, whether you are an Israeli, whether you are ISIS, who are putting people in cages and burning them, I think it's fucking horrible, right?
Right.
And so,
but I do think that Zionism, and this is something that actually Dan Cohen has been arguing about on X, and I've kind of jumped into the argument a little bit, but didn't really get much of a response back. But he's been arguing with somebody about, there's somebody he's been arguing with who says, no, Zionism is part of Judaism and you can't separate the two. And Dan says, no, that this is what Zionists, the real anti-Semites, that's what they want. Like the Zionists and the anti-Zionists, how did Dan phrase it? He was basically saying that, so the pro-Zionists will use that argument because they're like, if you're against Zionism, then you're against Jews, right? So they like to conflate the two. They conflate because they're trying to turn everybody into an anti-Semite. And then he says the anti-Semites use it because they also, they're claiming that they're anti-Zionist, but they're then conflating the two, and then they're against Jews because they're conflating. But I disagree with him. I do think that, unfortunately, Zionism is part of Judaism now, and that can change. I do. I think it is. I think it's part of the religion. If it's taught in every single synagogue by every single rabbi in America, it's part of your religion, whether you like it or not. Religions evolve constantly. And over time, religions will drop certain viewpoints. They'll gain other viewpoints. And in that time, the individual, don't get to say what your religion believes. That you can, like there's Catholics, for example, who believe priests should be able to marry. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's Catholics who believe women should have the priesthood. But even if they individually as a Catholic believe that, it doesn't mean Catholicism believes that. Catholicism doesn't. What's taught in the churches is that priests are men and that they cannot get married. That's what's taught by the church. That's what's taught in every single cathedral throughout the world, right? Even if individual Catholics might feel differently. So as an individual Jew, as Dan is, he may feel like Zionism should not be part of Judaism. But my point is, too bad. It's taught in every synagogue to every single Jew when they're little. That's what they're taught by their rabbis. So you can't separate the Zionism from the Judaism. Oh. That can change. I don't think it's part of the actual doctrine. I disagree with this.
Because I've had conversations with Rabbi Shapiro, and Rabbi Shapiro
an odd rabbi, but he's like an odd one out that isn't accepted by the rest of the. His rabbinical viewpoint is not mainstream nor accepted by the mainstream. So you can't go by the fringe.
I accept that. I do accept that on some level. But there's a historical context to a religion. Like, for example, Christianity. How many people accept all of the tenets of Christianity in the United States? They would call themselves Christians, and yet they have sex. They may smoke dope. They are dicks during the week, and yet they go and pray on Sundays. And they call themselves Christians. It's like, okay, but there's still a continuity, like a cultural context built into it that goes beyond the individual thing that those people do, regardless of what the preacher teaches and everything else. And look at all of the Jews that are out there protesting. Are we really trying to say that all of those people are somehow also Zionists?
If they want to continue to identify as Jews, which I don't think they have to, because I believe it's just a religion, it's a belief system, and that's it.
There's no difference between those things.
What's that?
There's no difference. It's an ideological distinction. I mean, there's no difference between those things.
It's like Catholics. My family's all Catholic. When was the last time they went to church? I don't know.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's like a cultural. Of course, religions kind of develop cultural norms within the religion that then people carry. Like Mormons is a very good example of this. They'll have like family night on Mondays. You got plenty of Mormons who know, and they don't watch rated R movies or drink caffeine or coffee or any of that. You got plenty of Mormons who no longer believe in the religion, but they're still culturally Mormon. Their family's still Mormon. They're culturally Mormon, and they still do a lot of the things, and they understand the lingo and the things are different. So there is a cultural aspect to it, but inside the synagogues, what is taught today is Zionism. And that, until the minority Jews at this point who don't want it to be part of the religion, if they can gain footing and actually change the tide, then I do believe the religion can change and no longer be Zionist. So it's not like it's inherently Zionist. It is Zionist at this point. It doesn't have to be Zionist in the future.
God, I so disagree with you on this, Kim. And I think there is a lot of Jewish people who would chafe at that argument that you're making.
They can all they want. It's taught in the synagogues. I mean, until they can get all the rabbis to stop teaching it in the synagogues, I don't know what to tell them. It's part of their religion. I don't get to dictate what I left the Mormon religion. I don't get to dictate what the Mormon religion believes or teaches. And when it made a shift, when it got a new leader, I shifted away from it because I didn't like what they were teaching anymore. That's just the way it is. If you don't like it, you got to leave it.
That's your take. It's not the way it is. Those are different
A
things.
lot of people, Catholics do the same thing.
take,
When the
but
priests
those
were
are
found
different
out
things.
to be molesting the little boys, lots of Catholics left the church because they didn't like the way the Catholic Church handled it. When you don't like so people have left the religions for a lot less than genocide, for a lot less than chosen one ideology.
Right. That's true. But those people, but pedophilia wasn't a part of pedophilia and Catholicism, even though the priests were even though the
Right,
priests
it
were
wasn't
pedophiles.
part of the actual,
Yeah,
right,
and
that one
even
wasn't.
though you had
But
a
with
church that
Mormons,
was literally moving them around in order,
yeah,
meaning you had a church structure that was effectively protecting pedophiles.
right,
But it
okay, so
wasn't.
that might be a bad example. Like even just the last the Pope who passed, a lot of Catholics did not like that Pope. They felt like he was way too liberal. They didn't like what he was
No,
teaching in the
I
church.
love that
And a
Pope.
lot of Catholics left Catholicism because they didn't like the viewpoint of the Pope.
Screw
And
those people. That Pope was awesome.
yes, but like some people liked him, some people didn't, right? And you don't get to dictate. I mean, the problem with what those Catholics understood and what I respect is that they didn't get to decide what the pontiff was up there teaching. They didn't get to decide. So what their only choice was, do I stay or do I go? And they chose to go. And
I
maybe
so
they're coming
disagree.
back, but that's your choice. You get to choose whether or not you're going to believe what the majority is preaching and teaching and what your religion is preaching and teaching at that time. And if you don't
There is
like
a
it, I mean, look, if enough Jews walked away and said, we're not Zionists, we don't want this taught in our synagogues, we don't want this to be part of our religion. If enough of them actually walked away and said, we're converting out of this,
yeah.
then they would probably change and they'd probably stop teaching it in their synagogues.
There is a continuity among religions, among ideologies that goes beyond an individual teacher of that ideology. Meaning the Pope can have a point of view and the Pope can teach things a particular way, but it doesn't really touch what the body of knowledge of Catholicism over the course of how many years, hundreds of
But
years,
Zionism
thousands of years.
is part of Judaism. It's just what you're disagreeing with is
It's
the
not. It
interpretation.
is
Yes, it
not.
is. It's
It is a
absolutely in
political.
their, it's theologically in their belief system. The only thing that you're debating is how it's interpreted. That's it.
No,
So you're
no, that is
debating the
not what I'm
interpretation.
debating.
They do
No, no,
believe that
no.
all of the children of Israel have to they have to gather. Now, like Shapiro, Rabbi Shapiro believes that that's in your heart. And the others are, and this is the same, but this is the same. This is also when it comes to Christianity and dispensationalism,
Yeah,
Catholics are not dispensationalists. Many of the Christians that are Zionist Christians. That is an you're debating the ideology of these Christians. This is not
I,
a political
my
viewpoint that's been inserted into these Christian religions. This is
my
their actual
argument.
interpretation
Let's be
of
clear.
the end of times.
My argument is that Zionism is a political movement, every bit as much as Democrats, Republicans are political movements,
And I don't
and that
totally agree with that.
they have fused that stuff. Like for example, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King will call himself a Christian, and he was. And you would often see these kind of political traditions come out of religious teaching. So you get Islam, and you have people who fanatically push back on, let's say, certain, let's say, aspects, using Islam as the religion and tip of the spear to do it, just like Christians in the United States. So you get a Malcolm X in the U.S. pushing back on the U.S. government in a political movement. Same thing. I'm saying that Zionism has fused itself with Judaism as if those things are exactly the same for political reasons, not just because Netanyahu says this is the state of Israel for all of the Jews, doesn't make it the state of Israel for all of the Jews, and all of the Jews agree with his political philosophy of things. I don't
Way
buy
that
that
they were
premise.
able to insert themselves, the way that the political Zionist movement was able to gain steam and insert itself into the synagogues and into all the rabbinical teachings is because they adopted, as part of their political ideology, they adopted a Zionism that actually took scripture, that took ideology and said, this is how this is how you should be interpreting it. That it's no longer in your heart, you should gather in Israel, that Israel's the church. Because the interpretation is, and this is the same, so non-Zionist Jews and Catholics have the same interpretation of the scripture, which is, so Rabbi Shapiro and Catholics would have the same non-dispensationalist viewpoint of Zionism, and that is that Zion is the church, and that all the children of Israel need to gather in the church.
Right.
The dispensationalists, those who are Zionists and now Zionist Jews, interpret that differently, and they scripturally and religiously interpret it as they need to gather physically in Israel, in Jerusalem. So this is an interpretation of religious scripture that has been adopted by the synagogues, by the rabbis, and they're teaching it to the kids. And so,
See, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, finish.
yeah. So my point is that, you know, it's not a political. Yes, I agree with the beginnings of Zionism, how it all started. There was a bunch of like non-religious Jews that,
yeah.
But they got together and they hijacked, you know, they figured out, they were very smart. So they figured out how to insert their political movement into religion and get people on board with it religiously. The problem is that it doesn't matter how it started. The fact is that the rabbis are all teaching it in the synagogues, and they're teaching it as scripture, and they're teaching it as just scriptural fact for all of these young Jews. And so it doesn't matter how it started.
I so disagree on this.
You know, if your priest is teaching it in your church, then it's part of your church. Whether you like it or not, it's part of your religion. And your choice is you can either leave your church or you can stay. You can try to band together and get your church to change their ideas. That has happened in time. Many churches have changed their stances on particular things. And Episcopalian Church is one that, you know, over time started allowing women into the priesthood. That was something that was demanded by the congregation, the Episcopalian congregation, or they wanted gay marriage. So they started allowing gay marriage because the population, the congregation wanted gay marriage. You can make changes within your religion and that causes an actual shift within the religion. But until you've done that, it's part, you know, your religion's your religion. Your choice is to leave it or you can, and I commend the Jews that want to stick around and remain Jews and vocally be anti-Zionist, because I do think that they potentially, if there's enough of them that get together, that they could potentially change the tide, turn the tide, and maybe the synagogues and the rabbis will stop teaching it.
What percentage of Jews do you think are anti-Zionist versus Zionists?
Not very many. The vast majority are Zionist, 85% at least.
I don't know what the number is.
It's, I think, 85%.
I don't know what the number is.
I think that's an accurate number.
Yeah, I don't know. I greatly disagree with this because I don't think. Okay, I greatly disagree with this. You made your point though. I don't want to back and forth because I want to get one more thing before you leave. What time is it? Okay, one more thing before you leave.
Okay.
I saw this on your channel, and I wanted to get your take on this because I've been fascinated by this dynamic of people who have left the Biden administration and then all of a sudden got a conscience. And whether it was, what is it?
They
Matt
didn't
Miller's
get a conscience,
circular?
Jamal. That's not what happened. They didn't grow a conscience. They're trying
I'm just
to get
calling
a
it
job.
that, right?
Right.
I don't. Right, they just need a job. So you get Clayton Jean-Pierre, the historic gay, lesbian, etc., White House speaker, who now is hawking a book and is, a quote, leaving the Democratic Party in order to hawk that book. And apparently Democrats have opened fire on her for this, but she's like, yeah, I'm leaving the party. I don't like the way you guys treated Joe Biden. And she is still lying through her teeth, and she is losing her mind. Like when she is making this argument that, well, when I saw Joe Biden, he was sharp and it was a firing line and, they treated my president so bad. And it's like, dude, did you see that debate? Like, were you just not watching the debate? Like, meaning they are making this argument that Donald Trump was the devil himself, the devil incarnate, that Satan was walking, bestrolling the globe as a Galactus, taking down things. Yeah. And that man named was Donald Trump. And he was going to put people up against the wall. He was going to shoot Liz Cheney on a firing line. He was going to just destroy the world. He was going to run for 50 terms, all of this stuff. And yet the man who they were going to put up for that was Joe Biden. And Joe Biden decided he didn't want to get out of the race, despite the fact he couldn't string two sentences together. And everybody and their mama knew that Joe Biden was cognitively damaged. It was like Weekend at Bernie's. And then the information that comes out later is AutoPen. There's that. Jill Biden was apparently running some of the meetings. The staff of the White House was keeping people away from Joe Biden. And it took a whisper campaign by Obama and, let's say, an inner circle to get rid of him. And he's now pissed off at some of these other Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, Obama, and whatnot, who had the whisper campaign to get him out there. They lose to Donald Trump. I would strongly suspect that Joe Biden is happy as a lark that they lost to Donald Trump. I can't prove it, but if they stick his body up and they can find a pulse and put a lie detector on him, I'm pretty sure it would show that he's like, I knew it. I told him I would. Be good. He still thinks that he would have won that race. Joe Biden could not even. I've never seen a debate performance that bad, ever. And yet, you get Karine Jean-Pierre saying, oh my God, it was a firing line. I can't believe they treated him this way. I've never seen anything like it. So she is out here hawking a book. And she comes out and says, this is in addition to Matthew Miller, who effectively said, look, man, I don't think it's a genocide, but I do think Israel committed war crimes. So it's okay. So you effectively lied about a genocide for years. And your response to this is, well, I was just doing my job. You could have resigned, right? So this is Karine Jean-Pierre selling her book.
This fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, and sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Karine, how do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next? Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. And what I mean by that is, in an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you.
Oh, here's the truth.
I think we need to stop.
I can't hear you, Jamal. You're on mute.
This pose, when people do it, is usually somebody lying. They're trying to plead for like something.
Yeah.
But okay.
She's like, well, I'm going to be honest. Oh, you're going to be honest. Fine. Tell us. What are you going to be honest about? Finally.
Thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And not be so partisan. And the way that
I'm going to stop this right here. Do we honestly believe that her politics has changed?
No.
And
No.
Like, I'm always amazed when people say that. It's like, oh, I'm just going to get out the box, man. And I think we need to stop with these two-party system. Okay. So have you changed it in your political positions? No, I have not. Okay,
well,
then how the hell?
She says. She sits there and she says, if you agree with me, then I got space for you. I mean, that's essentially what she says. Look, if you agree with me, then we're all good. We're all good.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Yeah, give me a take on this. She's just hawking a book, right? Like all of these apologists have now come up with Joe Biden. Is it because Kamala Harris lost?
Well,
is that what it is?
Yeah, I think they're all trying to scramble to save their jobs because they were part of a really failed administration and then a failed attempt at a second, a different administration with Kamala Harris. Yeah. And it was all such a failure that I think there's a real fear inside the Democratic Party, which they should be afraid, that there should be just like a full-on clean house, right? Just full sweep clean house, get rid of everybody, start fresh, and rebuild the party. And the establishment Democrats don't want to rebuild, but they see the writing on the wall that they're going to be forced into this, like, what are we going to, they're going to be forced into change. So I think a lot of these players, like you've got Jake Tapper, I know he's not part of the administration, but he did the same sort of thing. You're seeing a lot of these people, I think, just scrambling to save their jobs and save their futures. Like, we want to be a part of whatever's next. So we condemn. Now they're kind of like, we condemn that last, I don't know. It was terrible. I'm not part of that anymore. I'm now independent.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. The Democrats are, as popular as head lice. And I don't know how I do know. Transparency, radical transparency. We screwed up. We're horrible. We didn't represent anything. Yeah, I don't see them doing that. And I don't hear that coming out of her in this either.
No, I think Democrats are going to continue to fail until I think that their only path forward is President AOC. I think that is who they have, which I don't even like
think
AOC.
so.
I don't like AOC at all. Yeah,
Just
I don't like
David
AOC at all.
Pelosi.
But I do think that that's their only path forward. They don't want to do it. I think that they're slowly converting her. I mean, she's been converted quite pretty much to establishment.
Yeah.
But I do think that, but I do think she's still rogue enough, kind of like a Trump, that if she were in power, she'd kind of do her own thing and she'd be like, I'm in charge now. And I think they know that. So that's why they're not allowing her to move into a position of power. But I do think that the Democrats' next winning candidate, not that she would win the presidency, but I do think there's a real possibility she would. I do think the Democrats' next winning candidate is AOC. Yeah. And until they figure that out, they're going to lose. But I don't want her to be president because I think she is a fascist.
I can't stand this woke stuff.
Right.
And I think it misses the point of this kind of economic populism that I think they require. Like this. Go ahead.
And my point is with AOC, because she is the one, she was the queen of like, we got to stomp down on misinformation. We got to, there's all these things that she wants. Right. So she's, to me, a very, very scary person. And that's why I'm always bringing up like, look, you like Trump sending in the National Guard into California, do you? Are you going to like President AOC sending the National Guard into Texas? Are you going to be okay with that? Because every tool you give Trump is a tool you're giving to AOC when she's president. And I do believe she will be president of the United States. I do. I think she is the next Democrat winning candidate.
All right. I'm going to mark that down. Is there a year prediction for this?
I don't think it'll be this next one. I think a Republican will win again. And I think that Republican might get another term after that. But then I think it'll be AOC. So I think J.D. Vance, like let's just say J.D. Vance is next in line. And he ends up winning the primary because Republicans will have a real primary. I mean, they're not going to just hand it over to J.D. Vance or hand it over to whoever. I think they're going to have a real primary and there's going to be Republicans battling it out. And I think it could be like Marco Rubio who ends up getting the nomination. I would much rather J.D. Vance than Marco Rubio. Kennedy might even vie for it on the Republican ticket. There's Tulsi Gabbard might go for it on the Republican ticket. You've got a lot of open doors, I think, on the Republican side. So they're going to have a real true primary. But whoever it is, they're eligible for 2 terms. So I think that they'll get in. I think if Trump doesn't screw it up, which he might, then, I think a Republican is likely to win again. That person is likely to get a second term because they usually do. And then I would say AOC. So what is that? That's like 15, 11 years. Yeah. 11 years from now. No, it wouldn't be 2040.
That's not right. Listen, if it's 2024 now.
Well, we have 3 more Trump, and we have 8 years of whoever's next. So 11 years. So you're looking at a decade. Like in a decade, I could see her. They might be smart and they might stick her in there though on the second term, which is what I think they'll do. I think she'd become the candidate. Like, let's say J.D. Vance wins this next term, going up against J.D.'s reelection. I think they would put AOC in, and that would be tough.
If they're trying to burn her, if they're trying to burn her,
she might win. Depends on how Republicans do. What's that?
Because most presidents win, as you point out. Like most presidents win both terms.
It's very hard, but not always. But not always. And so, 3 terms of Republican. That's rough. I'm not sure if. Yes. So there is a possibility that she could weasel her way in there, and win. And I think Democrats. I hate to say it because I really don't like her at all. I'm really afraid of her. I do think she would rip freedoms away from us. But I think that the Democratic the voting population is one that would absolutely vote. I think if they want to win, and I think they would have a good shot at winning if they actually put her in there. Not right now, but yeah, I don't think the next one either. I don't think she should run in the next one against whoever the Republican is going to be. But the next one, but after that, I think we're going to see it. I think she's going to be the next. I think she's going to be. I think she is going to be a Democrat president.
First female president of the United States, AOC.
I mean, I don't know. I think that Republicans very well might put the next one in as there could be a woman who runs on the Republican side that wins.
Oh, you think Tulsi Gabbard? I don't think they trust Tulsi.
Oh, I don't think Tulsi, but there's plenty of others that I think they could put in there that would do well.
Oh,
And
like Nikki Haley. Oh, she's
I
terrifying.
mean, not Nikki, but somebody, but more anti-establishment that would maybe do well on that side.
Wait,
Somebody
who would
maybe we
that
don't
be?
even.
The MGTE? Like, who would that be? I don't know who that would be.
No, I don't think it would be MTG. I think she turns off too many people, even though I actually like her for the most part. I didn't like what she said about the protests in LA. She's like, send in more troops. I'm like, really? You didn't like that for the J6ers, but now you want that for this.
Right. None of these
Um,
people are consistent. None of them.
No, none of them are.
Massey,
I don't know.
maybe
I don't know who
consistent.
it would be. I think we'd have to like wait and see because I think there's still room for people to develop and grow and kind of get in there. And you never know. Midterms and there's new elections and new people come in and who knows? I mean, Obama was only a junior senator. So, I mean, it could be, anybody that we don't even know yet. But I do fear an AOC presidency. But I do think that is inevitable.
Kim Iversen, thank you for staying with me on this. You and I swear, man, every time we come on the show, we fight. Or every time we're on the show together, we fight.
I was actually telling my dad that because, what's funny is that I'm in Italy right now. And I'm actually where I first discovered you. And it was 6 years ago because my dad, I was staying with him in Italy back in 2018. And the way that I found out about you and the way that I even got involved in doing all of this is because my dad would walk around watching you on his iPad every day. He'd watch you on his iPad when you had Progressive Soapbox. And he would walk around the house and I knew he was getting ready to watch you because he'd hold his iPad and he'd go, hello, everyone. And I was like, oh, Dad's about to watch tomorrow. And that was while we were staying in Italy together. And so now we've come full circle. Like here I am in Italy where like staying. He's great.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please finish. I interrupt you. I'm sorry. Please finish that part.
Yeah. But I'm actually even in the same apartment as I was in when I first started watching you and discovering you and all of that. Yeah, I'm like same. Right. Yeah, we are full circle right now. But
just started back my show again.
But I was telling my dad and my sister who's with us this time, and I told them I was like, yeah, I'm going on Jamal's show, and my sister doesn't know you. And my dad's like, oh, cool. All right, cool. But my sister's like, well, who's that? And I was like, well, whenever I go on Jamal's show, whether it be when you were on Sputnik or wherever, I was like, we always disagree. Like we always battle it out, but it's always respectful. I showed her a video of you and she's like, oh, he's really calm. I was like, he is very calm and we always disagree. But it's always, it's a great disagreement. It's like, having a good, healthy disagreement with somebody and not hating each other or, we're still friends. It's still like, this is the healthy way people should do it. They should learn from this.
Oh, I've been unhinged on that show. God, man, I remember when I first started on Sputnik, I got in a fight with this guy. And the guy said, like, if you say another word, then I'm leaving. I said, well, I guess you're leaving it. Like, it was that bad where it was like literally the guy just left the show. It's like, okay, this is not sustainable.
You're always nice to me. I mean, we disagreed all the time, but you were always.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Our COVID arguments were rough. But besides that, everything else was fun. Kim, thank you for this. And by the way, when I say rough, I don't mean horrible. I just mean
no. We definitely did not agree, and we still don't agree on a lot of things.
By the way, my audience agrees with you on the COVID thing. They completely disagree.
Oh, do they?
Oh, they completely disagree with you on the COVID thing. They completely.
Well, you were wrong. So hey.
Kim Iversen. She is Kim Iversen, independent political analyst, host of the Kim Iversen Show. You can find her on Rumble, YouTube, as you put it out, Twitter. Is there anywhere else where people can find you, just in case I'm missing something?
That's pretty much that's the bulk of it. That's the bulk of it right there.
Kim, you have a fantastic trip. Enjoy.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good one. All right. She has hit Hornets.